exactly. All right, so we'll get the meeting going. We'll adjourn at 5:05, and I promise we will be out by 6, so I'll ask Raquel to call the roll.
Here.
Here. Here. Here.
Here? And for tonight, well, you're sitting at the table. We'll get you sworn in, ideally tomorrow, so, exactly. Yeah, I think it is, actually. Oh, yeah, thereabouts, yeah. It's good. All right. All right, rein it in, rein it in. Yeah. All right, we don't have any approval of meeting minutes tonight, so we'll forego that. I will say this, is that my time is getting eroded and it's budget season, so I'm gonna ask that moving forward, you know, any minutes, Raquel's the secretary, we'll push over that way. You have the format and can get prepared, and then what we can do is, would be ideal for me, is to have Terry go ahead and post the minutes, so I don't need to be involved at all as the chairperson. So if that would be a big weight off my agenda, because I've kind of had to play catch-up in amongst other things I'm doing for the committee.
Post the minutes on the town's website?
No, on the Secretary of State, so which is mandated by law. So Terry has to sign in just like I do. She can get to the same thing I can, and I can coordinate with her to make sure that happens.
So you want someone who's not here at the meeting, someone who's not taking notes, taking minutes, somebody's going to send it to her and then she's just going to post it?
So Raquel's in the same building, so she would prepare.
Right, but my question was somebody going to send Terry the minutes and Terry just needs to post it? You're not asking Terry to come to the meeting and do minutes.
No.
You're saying,
Nope.
Terry, this is going to end up in your inbox. Could you just take it and throw it up on the secretary's website?
Yep, so Raquel is in the same building. I'm sure they can communicate, and Raquel can just say, hey, I'm going to send these to you. Can you please post? Does that sound good, Raquel? Does that work? Perfect. So that would take a load off of my plate.
Yeah,
and-
so that's my idea, because we've got about 6 things we're moving on town-wide, and it's really, it's getting to be really busy, so it's no reflection on anything or no trying to dump anything on it. It's just, it is what it is.
No, not a problem. I misunderstood what he was saying. That's why I was asking you
Yeah.
to clarify, because I thought you wanted her to come to the meeting. I was like,
I mean, she's welcome like everyone else, but I don't think she wants to.
right.
Oh, well, there you go. I didn't even see you walk in. Okay. Well, welcome. All right. Perfect. Got a high energy group. This is what happens when you start at 5 instead of 6, right? Yeah. Everyone must have drank a coffee before they came tonight. All right, item 3, review, discussion, and action regarding public correspondence. So I haven't had any to post. So obviously, if I have stuff that's moving forward, I'll let you know. I'll put it out on the website as well, but we've received no general correspondence. Moving on to the chairperson's report. So communications with RIDE and Studio Jade. So I haven't had any recent communications with RIDE. I think for the most part, we're in a holding pattern. We have what we need at this point. Studio Jade, I did have a communication with them last week following the joint meeting because there was discussion about the program, right? What's going on, more refinement. So in order to keep Phil moving somewhat, although I will say that Studio Jade is working with a number of municipalities. February 15th is a big deadline for them, right, or was a big deadline for them, with the first wave of submissions that went in for this year. So, you know, he was extremely busy with that. So I said, in the meantime, while we're kind of vetting things out with council and school committee, can you look at the pre-K program, reach out to the superintendent, get a little bit more information on the program that could be there, and to just see what that looks like. So he's planning to come back at our next meeting and present that, just to see what impacts that would have. It's a discussion, but it's more information that we need and can keep the process rolling so that we can start making decisions once other financial decisions are made.
Can I ask a question about that? So stage 2 is really kind of an overarching overview of the project and not necessarily digging into the minutia of things like the programs, like the details of it all. Are we looking at it from the aspect of just strictly housing the PK program and like building wise?
Yeah.
Or are we, because it almost sounds like, I wasn't at the meeting, but I watched it. And it almost sounded like they wanted more details about the actual program, which feels to me like out of the scope of information for this moment in time. But so if we're just looking at it from okay, where physically is pre-K going to go versus what does the pre-K program look like? Those are two distinctly different things. And so I just want to make sure that we're not overstepping stage 2 at this point. Like stage 3, right? It's after the approvals and we go into stage 3 and we start really getting into the nitty-gritty. But my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, stage 2, it's more of that like overarching.
So it is. I interpreted the discussion in terms of the building committee to mean program in terms of square footage, right?
Okay.
The building program.
Okay.
We have a pre-K program. I'm not looking at, or I don't think we should really be looking at, unless the school committee directs us to, looking at universal pre-K. What I simply asked is, what would we need to house, because we know that it's currently temporarily placed in one location. That needs to relocate. There's been suggestion of it going to the high school. Okay, that's going to expand the square footage and potentially expand the cost of the project. So what does that look like? Both logistically, could it go there? And then 2, what does it inflate the cost as? Where we've proposed the project as 150 million as a top number, right? That doesn't mean that if we come back with a program that says, hey, adding pre-K is going to add 5 million to that building cost. We know it's fluid, right? We're going to put forward a building program throughout the district that RIDE's going to approve. But within that, we can move money to different priority areas throughout the process. So right now, I'm just doing a scoping session for the committee to have information to eventually recommend, based on school committee input and other, where do we go? Does that answer your question?
Yes, that clarifies it for me. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that while we're on it? Or comments? Okay. So that's really the only communication with Phil that I've had. I expect that will ramp up very quickly once we get through, the minutia of the financials and setting a budget for the project. I haven't done any more on the legal review of Hazard Field right now. I had already reviewed the deed previously. I actually reminded myself I had gone back and I had the deed, and there was no restrictions. We bought it fee simple, the town bought it fee simple at the time, so there were no restrictions on the deed itself. So we're in a holding pattern really on that until we get more clear direction on the financials. Does anybody have any questions on that before I move on? Okay. I'll move on to the next one, which is review of the 23 joint meeting, additional direction provided by the school committee and town council. So I know several of you were there, but just to provide the high level, there was quite a bit of discussion, obviously focused on the project. I gave a presentation along with the town manager and the finance director from the town, Brian Sylvia, just reacquainting everyone with the project, and we essentially broke it down to 4 options because I had to really contain cost scenarios. Again, we're going to continue to refine the project, so what that looks like at the end may be different. But it was a 150 tier, which is sort of the all-in project, new high school, deferred maintenance, hazard building, administration, relocation, the whole kind of kit and caboodle, less the gymnasiums and some of the programmatic elements at the elementary school. Then we had a 125 tier, $125 million tier that was simply focused on the high school, right? And there was discussion on that. There was discussion about the watering down of the reimbursements because of the top out on ride reimbursements. We had that discussion. Then I had a lower tier at $103 million, which was really looking at the 10-year deferred maintenance plan. You know, what would happen if we just took that list and said, we're going to do all the deferred maintenance in the district? Because that's the next kind of logical thing, right? You just fix what you have, put the Band-Aids on. And we looked at that number, and then my last tier was my last tier? Was it 37? 37.5. Yes. Good memory. All right, so 37.5. I can't remember what I did yesterday. And that was really looking at the immediate deferred maintenance number and trying to, again, put the Band-Aids on, fix what we have, and hold. That would be the scenario that would probably be in place if we can't get a new high school and we're kind of at a point where it's like renovation doesn't make any sense. Maybe we just hold our ground and go that route. So obviously I won't belabor it. You can go back to the meeting and look at it. You can also go to the slideshow, which is on the website for both you and the public. But I would say that we broke it down to the tax rate impact, and it's already been said, it was in the paper today, on an individual's tax bill, not the levy, what people are going to accrue each year, but on an individual's, after everything is in place, they will reflect upwards of a 9% increase on your tax bill. So if you're paying X, it's going to be X times 9% in however many years.
Can you talk through that math?
Sure.
How are you, just wondering how you're getting to 9%?
That's fine. So what we did was we had it broken down, I'm just pulling up the numbers, right? So, for example, and the 9% is really reflective of the $150 million full project, right? It breaks down on a mill rate per thousand, all implemented when you levy all of that money over a 3 or 4 year time period, would be $1.03 impact on a person's tax bill per thousand, right? So right now we're at a 1095 tax rate. So picture it as a what, 1198 tax rate when we're all said and done. If everything was frozen in place and that went in today, obviously, depending on valuations of properties, there's going to be a lot that goes on over the next 3
Can
years.
you say those two numbers again? 1095 would increase to 11 what?
As of today, if we were to carry that in place, it would impact us at an 1198 rate,
Thank you.
right? Because that's your mill rate.
So that 1198 sum that you're saying, would be 9%
When you
added to the 1095?
So when you translate that into a home value, right, you times them per thousand, and you take what they would pay now. Let's take it's round numbers. It's $10,000, right,
Yep,
in taxes.
yep.
Once you add in the new mill rate, you're going to be paying $10,900 because you got a 9% increase. That $900 is allocated simply to cover the debt service of that bond.
Let me talk in very simplistic terms on that, too. So a $150 million bond would be issued over a period of time. Whatever that time is. How long it takes to issue the bond and build a high school and the other improvements. So you're looking at, say, 3-4 years by the time that bond's fully issued. So an approximate 9% increase in the property tax would be once that bond has been fully issued. But that, we're measuring it in today's dollars. Like, this is, today we're looking at. So say, for example, a house is worth $450,000.
Yep.
And that's the value, and they're being taxed at $10.95 per thousand on $450,000. And let's lower it down. Let's just say it's $1 that it went up on that tax rate. So that person's average taxes would go up about $450 a year. $1 more per thousand times $450,000. And it goes up exponentially. If your house is worth $900, then it goes up $900. $600 goes up $600. $600,000, $600. One statistic that stood out to me was 65% of all the households in this town are in that 300 to 600 range. Mm-hmm. So 65%, that's where the majority of this burden would fall, right?
So,
Hold on for a second.
go ahead.
So if the house is worth 450, and we're talking 3 years, in the first year, what would that cost increase be?
It would be whatever the amount of the bond that was issued. That's why it's a 9% projected increase over until the bond is fully issued. So say, for example, it could be 2%, could be 1%, could be 3%, and then the next year it could be 4%, 3%. We don't know until, it's the amount of the bond that was issued.
Correct, but where are we getting the 9% total? I'm just wondering.
So
where
I've got
that's-
numbers here. So I had a finance director just do a financial impact. So if you look at, let's look at the top number, and I have it in my hands. So if we issue a $150 million bond, and the ride reimbursement's 52.5%, and there's an estimated interest rate on the bond of 4.25%. So in year one, which would be 2026, that period of time, the bond would be 4.25. The total debt service would be $10,574,000, of which we would get state reimbursement of $4,233,000. So the interest that the town would have to, fund would be approximately $6 million that first year, 5.974. So that's where the numbers are. Now, each time, it's like a mortgage, right? Each time you make a payment, there's principal and there's interest. So it goes down and it's projected over 20 years. But for that, until we issued that bond, it's about a 9% increase.
So,
You still get questions, Mark, on that?
9% seems high, but I haven't seen that projected document. That might be helpful.
Sure.
When I just use round numbers, doing the math, I don't get 9%, but I could be missing a step. So that would just be helpful for me. That's all.
So I also want to do a little bit of clarification, as there's some misinformation in our community about these numbers, where, and I think it comes from when the statement is made, like, it might be 3%, it might be 4%, and there's this misunderstanding that over the next 5 years, there could be a 4% increase, in theory, there could be a 4% increase each year, and it actually brings us to a 20% total increase, and I want to make
Yeah,
sure
so-
that that's clear,
yeah,
that
so-
that is not right.
So there's two things that we have to think about, right? The bond, the percent that we're paying back on a bond. So this is the bond only. And once again, it's around 9%. It's within a tiny parameter difference, right? But you also have to figure in where that misconception is coming from, but it's not really a misconception. Every year, on a good year, a municipal budget goes up approximately 2% in cost. Last year, I think it was 1.9%, if I remember correctly. But that is the threat. You can't, by law, raise it more than 4%
Right.
a year, right? But you never want to, you really don't want to do that. So the threshold we use is we have 2% or less. That's what we, municipal leaders, town managers, try and keep the budget. So just say we can keep it at 2% for 3 years. And just say that 6% increase in 3 years, approximately 5 to 6% in the municipal budget for added costs, operating costs. But then you factor in the bond, which is approximately 9%. So in a 3-year period, you could be looking at, depending on how quick the high school went up, how quickly that bond was issued, you could be looking at a 14, 15% increase in taxes. Total, bond and operational costs for the town.
we would, one thing we need to do is do projections on the levy, because the levy, what you're talking about is the levy increase, and that is very different, right? A certain percentage equals, 1% can equal $1 million. So you're looking at that raising of money through the levy, and you're right, you don't want to confuse that with the increase of the actual property taxes. And so,
And that's what people care about. And so if they hear 20%, that's a lot of money. If I think I pay $6,500 a year, if that goes up 20%, that is an incredible amount of money.
It is.
Each year, right? So I want to make sure that the information that is being shared is as accurate as possible.
Yeah,
so
so
that-
let's clarify that again. So I never mentioned 20.
I know
no
you
one-
didn't, I
no-
know you didn't, that, but it's
Yeah,
being
we were like,
said.
yeah, so let's focus on the bond. The other tax increases are there no matter what. Bond, no bond, high school, no, so let's just concentrate on this. For a $150 million bond, that is the number that we came up with over and over and over. I mean, these are fact-checked many times in all different scenarios. From the date the bond was issued to the date it was approved to the date it was issued, the full amount, that 3 to 4 year period when that bond is fully issued would be about a 9% increase in your property taxes.
Yep.
That's the number we need to focus on.
So one of the things we can do is we can go back with the finance director. I mean, we're in the middle of budget season, but we can run some projections on the levy. Yeah, we're all in budget season, right? But that's fairly easy to do, but you have to do estimated, right? What do you think? So if you estimate, we're anticipating on a base level, we're gonna go up 2% per year. How would we feasibly raise the money to cover the debt, the $6 million in our budget? And what would that impact be on the levy? Because we do have some money saved, not a lot, but some money saved in capital reserve, all that has to be. But ultimately, what it's going to come down to for a lot of taxpayers is what are they paying, right? And there's going to be an increase. We all acknowledge that. Information is power. Some people are willing to accept that, some aren't. That's policy. That's what the school committee, as you know.
Well, and also, that's going to come down to a vote that what the taxpayers want to do. When it if we get, you know, the number and we get the bond and we go to vote, it'll be up to our community to vote whether or not they want to do that or not. So I just want to make sure that they're getting the right, accurate, bottom line information so that they can vote educated.
And right now, it's in the council's hands, right? So it's not so much about the community. The information campaign to the community, we can break this down. We can slice and dice this many different ways. Numbers really don't lie,
Right?
unless you want them to, but we want them
We
to
don't
be
want them
informative,
to,
right?
yeah.
So we can slice and dice these down to show every homeowner what they would be paying on a round number basis. So that's not hard. It's really getting to the level where council can understand, do we want to put this forward? Is it to the point where we feel good enough that if the voters say yes, are we disenfranchising the town, right? That's really their sort of litmus test at this point. Because there's still another big wall. I keep saying there's the short wall, which is the town council, and it's still a big wall, but then there's the public, and they're gonna have to weigh in on
The
this.
public is the one, it's their school.
Right. Clarifying question here. When the screen that you have up there, it has weekly, has monthly, has annually. So if a bond for 150 million is passed, voted out, is passed, I, as the taxpayer, will be paying $435
Based on that home value, the 425,
based on that
4,200.
home value.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once we go to pay the bond, once the bonds are issued and we have to pay that debt, that's the increase, barring any other increases. You know, Jim makes a good point. You know, obviously, there's going to be
Right,
other.
But those other increases are there anyway, right?
Well, I see, this is where I'll disagree. We're not required to have a 2% increase every year. I know historically, the town has between a 1% and 2% increase every year because of cost of living raises and things like that. But there's other savings that could be found that would hold the municipal budget flat. So it would only be the bond. So the only thing that we're sure of is the bond will go up 9% at 150, a little less at 125, and you know, if we're going to go with the high school, there's no way you're going to go less than 125. So those are the numbers, and those should be out there. Those are the right numbers. It's 7 to 9%.
That's why I say concentrate on the bond.
Yeah.
But a flat budget for many years in a row, yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I'm not saying many years in a row, but there's.
You know there's going to be at least one, maybe 1.5 on a good year. I mean, I've never seen one flat year. Everything goes up.
We've never seen a contracting school enrollment like we have right now.
Yeah, but that's a different.
That's 85% of
I've
the
seen a
municipal
flat budget.
But all I'm saying is that.
But it all goes into the same tax.
Let's not confuse it, though.
Yeah.
Concentrate on the $150 million bond. That is the cost if we do the schools. That is what we should concentrate on. The rest is up to me and my staff to figure out how low we can keep it. I wish it would be flat, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressures on both sides, right? Our job as the building committee, putting on that hat, is to provide good information to the policymakers.
Absolutely, and that's the only reason why I'm not looking to battle about, you know, who's got it harder. I want to know that we're putting out the right information, and so that the information that is being shared in our community is accurate. That's my biggest, and if the number is 20%, then I want us to say it, right? I don't want us to surprise anybody, right?
Nope, that's why, once again, I'll say it again, we need to just concentrate on the issuance of a bond and what it would cost to fully issue that bond at the end of the day, 3 years, 4 years from now.
I agree, because we don't have control over the other piece, but we have control between the 7 or the 9 or 0
Yep.
on the bond. That's all we can control.
Yeah. No, it's all good points, and we're gonna see how it plays out. If there's additional information the committee suggests that we can give the council or give to the school committee that would help clarify, I'm all ears, we're all ears to make that adjustment. I don't know how you all feel about it. Do you feel it's clear enough? I hear you on the levy, and, you know, even if you're in it at 0, you could, to clarify the percentages, but is there anything else that you feel the committee can be doing to help the decision?
No, I think, to be honest with you, I think that, like I said, I watched last Thursday night's meeting, and I thought your presentation was wonderful, and the discussion was great, and Dave, I thought your comments were phenomenal. So, I mean, there were some sticking points for me as watching it as an observer was hard in some moments, but, I mean, I thought all the information was shared, proper, and I thought the discussion was good until it wasn't, but.
Well, listen, you know, obviously, no decisions were made. We're going back to the table on the 23rd, for those that can make it, and it'll be posted as a joint meeting. Really, I don't expect the school building committee to do a very active role unless asked to weigh in on some information. Our job, again, is to communicate whatever information and ensure that it's a factual conversation. Whatever happens policy-wise, our job is to, you know, whatever direction's dealt out there, if there's a vote, we'll take that and make the best project we can with it, whether it's 150 million, 30 million, or anywhere in between. So just put that on your schedule. It is, Jim, we starting at 7, correct? On that
Yes,
meeting?
we're going to go to executive session at 6.
6?
So I have a question about the need for the next meeting, and the intention of the next meeting. What is the intention of the next meeting? Is it to get more information from the school district so that the town council can decide which version of the bond they're considering floating? Is that the intention of that meeting?
I think the town council is looking, their goal is to take a vote that night on the amount of the bond
Okay.
that they would move forward. That's the intention that's been relayed to me by the
Okay.
council members.
So I guess my question then is, why is it going to be a joint meeting of the 3 bodies on a Thursday night instead of part of their a typical town council meeting on a Monday, that they would, part of their normal business? And I ask that only because, again, like you said, it's budget season, and our people who are building the budget are actively working, like you guys all are. And I'm curious, because we're handing the budget over to you, and you will in that see where our projected closure savings, and all that information is being compiled right now. And it's being handed over shortly after the 23rd, so somewhere between the 23rd and, obviously you guys want it before the 1st, so that the town council can digest it. So I guess I was confused watching the meeting why there was another meeting being scheduled that way, and I'm just looking for a clarification if it's truly needed, and if it can't be just done in one of their typical.
I think it's no secret the town council asked a lot of questions, and they're going to ask a lot of questions again on the 23rd. And we're adding an executive session before that
Okay.
to invite the superintendent to come in and maybe answer some personnel questions that, you know, should be an executive session.
Gotcha.
But, you know, that's that's the, there will be questions. There's no secret about that. There's no doubt in my mind there'll be a lot of questions
Yeah.
that night on both sides.
Okay, thank you.
We are invited, because, and whether we like it or not, most of the people who are going to be there are building committee members, so I'll have to post it regardless. But, you know, keep in mind, this is the single largest decision that this town probably has had to make in the past several decades, right? I mean, this is a big amount that we're looking at. They do have a right to vet it on whatever merits they seem fit. So, you know, like it or not, you know, in school committee, I know this seems, you know, I'm trying to carry a lot of water and whatnot, but this is truly a school project. This is not a you know, a town initiative. It starts through RIDE, it's reimbursed through RIDE. We're trying to be helpful, but in the end, it's a school project. So the school committee, you know, this is for me, school committee has to come to the table and have that discussion, uncomfortable or not, and if they wanted this thing to be successful and get it over the hump.
So we're clear, I'm not saying that I would be uncomfortable with the discussion, because I
No,
have no problem, obviously, having discussion. I just was looking for clarification, so thank you.
Any,
Yeah, I just want to make one general statement, too, that the superintendent and I had a real good meeting yesterday and talked about a lot of different things. But we are fact finders that are presenting them to two different bodies, right? And they ultimately, the council has the policy decision on the amount of money. I will tell you this, the council, everyone is recognizing this town needs improvements in our schools. There's no question. I haven't talked to one person yet that doesn't think so. It's how do we get to that point? And that's what this conversation has to be, a non-adversarial. Let's talk it through and figure it out. The facts, the numbers don't lie. These numbers are huge. It'd be the largest debt that this town has ever taken on. It's a major decision, and it's going to take the council feel comfortable with it, the school community be comfortable with it, more importantly, the residents to, and we have to communicate that to them why this is needed. I think it's good to have both bodies in the same room. I do, and I think the conversations we had, I think it will be productive.
so I don't really have anything else on that topic. Does anybody else have any introspective they want to share, or are we good in that, about the joint meeting? All right, so the 23rd, 7 o'clock, we'll hopefully be there, and hopefully it'll be a productive conversation. All right, moving on to number 6, a review, discussion, and action regarding project program elements. I won't belabor this. I've already alluded to it earlier about the pre-K and looking at some of the elements. I think what's going to happen is, right now, we're going to be in a holding pattern until we get that clarity on the 23rd, and then at what point we will move into some type of schematic design, whatever that looks like. So the project will get refined as part of the stage 2. It'll still have kind of open scopes, so we're going to address HVAC in general, and it's going to cost X. But it's not going to get down the plans where we're going to start looking at the nuts and bolts of the project. Jim, did you have something or no? Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions on the programmatic side or on the building programmatic side? All right, we'll move on. Public outreach and communication activities. So one of the things that I urge all of us to think about, and also in time of, you know, our own time and being able to be participatory in the process, is good information, as Kate said, is key. So as a building committee, we have a responsibility to both develop a project, but also communicate good information on that project. It is going to ramp up significantly if we get a larger project out of this. We need to communicate the numbers accurately where people can understand. We need to communicate the project, the value of the project, and how do we get that done. I think we're going to have to think about maybe relying on Phil a little bit, and I've, you know, one thought is to maybe see if he'd expand his scope a little bit to include more information. I hesitate to call it marketing, because marketing indicates that we're going saying, go say yes. That's not the intent here. I think people need to make their own decision based on really, really good information. So, but there's things like maybe hosting an outside website that has the photos of the project and maybe has a fly-through. Having an interactive numbers thing where you can drill down on what would it mean for me. So maybe they can put in their house value and maybe it spits back a number on the ultimate tax rate impact with an explanatory. So it's all stuff that this is just the start of discussion of starting to think about ideas as you as a homeowner, and many of you live in this community, what would you want to see? You know, if you were going to make this very important vote, how would you best get that information to make a decision? Because I think there was a lot of information the last bond round, but I don't know if it was truly good information. And I've got a lot of feedback myself that, like, people said, well, I didn't really know until the nth hour, and then it was really a debate over Facebook. And I didn't really have a place to go to get really good information that was fair and balanced. So does anybody have, and this is where I'll make my pitch out there, does anybody have any initial thoughts or just want to let that simmer?
I mean, just from the last experience that we had, having a website is good, but to your point, it's only as good as the information, garbage in, garbage out. It's only as good as the information that's there. And also, it's only as good as the trust that people have in the process and in the information, because some of the information may have been factual, but people didn't trust it, so it didn't matter if it was factual or not. So I think having as much information out there as possible, but making sure that we have a level of trust with the community that what we're giving them is strictly the facts, and then it's up to them to decide what to do with it. So a website is wonderful. I mean, I think it's a good idea. We had a great, and again, you know, I agree with you. The word marketing is tough because it sounds like you're trying to market something, but we had a wonderful group that was working with our architect and engineer, but unfortunately, because of who they were working with, they got kind of a shadow got cast on them as well. So I just think we just have to be gentle and with our community and know that it was a bad time, and we just need to make sure that they trust our process, and whatever we're giving them, that they can trust that it's the right information.
Anybody else have any thoughts? We're going to be coming back to this issue too.
Yeah, I think the poster board was good last time for the in-person, especially if we put them up at the high school. You know, we have sports going through, we have different events, so having those up during those, I think, got a lot of eyes on the meetings we had in December and January.
And that's something we communicate, you know, Phil's done it and he's offered to do it again, get a new set of boards up. I think making them a bit more generic this time so that they can go to the website to get the meeting dates and whatnot, and be a little bit more specific that it's not to support the schools or whatever, it's, you know, get information on the building project. So, okay. Chip, did you have something?
Yeah, I would just say, in general, people are busy, and I think we need to have, for that, at least the initial part of a website or posters, like very simple, just fact-based, but simple. Don't get bogged down with numbers. Don't get bogged down with a lot of things. Just keep it simple as to like what the project's about, so that people who just want that layer of information can make decisions, and then. But also, obviously, we're going to have plenty of other information that if they want to look further and deeper. But I think it's more about like, this is the overview of it.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Say the more information, the better. The last time it was really kind of discussed on Facebook, and decisions were made based on bad information. So I think the more information we can put out on the website and potentially monitor what's going on. I'm not on Facebook, but obviously there's discussion going on about the real tax rate based on what Kate sent in. So having a frequently asked question placed on the website where we can say what the town manager just said is, yeah, it's 9% at 150, but there is an additional, but it's maybe not 20%, you know. But then people won't start making their own assumptions, because online it'll be 25% before you know it. And then, you know, so I think we need to be active in it. And not to market it, but just to correct some misinformation that gets spread wildly and quickly.
All right. Anything else? We'll move on. All right. We'll put a pin on that one. It's going to come back. It's going to ramp up, especially once we get through schematic. You'll notice on the schedule there's a whole time of information. And also, we have multiple meetings with the community, and that's the time that we can get out packets of information and really get good information out and distributed, so. Okay,
I would just add, just so that it's out there, we had talked last time about our NEASC accreditation visit and having members of the school building committee come to our high school to talk to the NEASC accreditation team about it. So today I had invited, based on what we talked about last time, Phil Conte, Luke, Jim, and Dave to that, so that they would have an opportunity, without us being at a quorum, to discuss the building and bring it up to date. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
thanks, Chip. All right, we'll move on to the general public comment section. If anybody's here, would like to express anything about the project, we have about 10 minutes available, so going once, going twice. Come on up, Dora.
I had to go to shorts.
Dora, you have 5 minutes, okay?
So, I got to ask this question because it's been going through my mind recently. In between meetings of this group, Mr. Murray is making calls, is having meetings, and with all sorts of entities, school building authority, RIDE, school committee, the school district. And I'm assuming there are some times when he's making decisions. As a group, did you give Mr. Murray carte blanche to make decisions for you without any input from you in between meetings? Because if you haven't, you probably should.
Let me introduce a point of clarification.
Yeah.
There are no decisions being made outside of this committee. Everything I have done on communications, what I do is I simply bring back to the committee. So it's important somebody's communicating. RIDE does not want to communicate with 9 people. So I'll have a discussion, I bring it back. If there's, and everyone knows that, and I bring it back into the open forum. So there is not one thing to date, and I can attest that, has been decided by me individually.
All right, I just need that,
Let me just add to that.
just
I'll
need
attest-
clarified.
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing. Fact-finding is part of all of us, including him, me. So we ask a lot of questions to a lot of entities. We bring all the information back. No decisions are made individually.
All right, thank you. Okay, the numbers, I mentioned this last time, at the end of the last meeting, the numbers that are in here are not right because Mr. Conte also mentioned the latest per square foot numbers for projects that are coming in. You know, he's talking about $825 to $885 per square foot. But those numbers are not reflected in these 4 options.
So they are. So
No,
if
they're
you
not.
take $850 a square foot times 140,000 square feet, it's $119,000. I said all this that night before you walked in. $6 million is for the athletic facility. That nets us $125 million estimated cost. Keeping in mind that we're not shooting at 885 because that's a range, right? We're coming in with, we know we're going to have to potentially make some contraction in the budget. Like, we can't just come in at 140 and say, well, we're just going to estimate that it's $900 a square foot. Like, we hit the median on the number at the 850. We times it by the 140 that Phil gave us. So those are real numbers. Like, those were vetted by Phil.
Yeah, but the 140 didn't include the 5,000 he had in there for the CTE.
So the CTE got contracted, if you remember, and the 225 also got contracted at RIDE's recommendation. RIDE,
I'm not talking about the 225. And he had, on the last thing he showed, the slide he showed, is it had like 140, for 1,000 square feet for the building, and then right below that was 5,000 for CTE. That brought it up to 146.
That's right. And since we've talked about contracting to keep it at the 125, because there's the reality of the situation of containing budget, right? And so if we get 150 and we have, I talked about this also at the council, there's going to be decisions of this building committee that will say, this is more of a priority than that. And some more may go more into the high school program. We may push more into the administration building, wherever that goes. We know we want a new high school. So when we're talking at this level, we're not talking about what you're talking about, which is the finite, like even Phil will tell you, these are all estimates at this point.
Okay, you're going to relocate the administration. If you bring it into the high school, RIDE will pay for that. RIDE will pay for you to increase the size of your school. Then, in the future, if school opens up and 800 kids show up, and you build a school for 700, then you have some room.
So it,
Because I thought 156,000 was the you said, he mentioned, and you said at the last meeting, that the 156,000 square foot high school was what they recommended, but then we've been whittling it down.
correct. That's correct. Because the original, if you remember, if you go way back, right, October-ish, whatever, the estimates were above 140, just for the high school. So this is the process, right? This is the building committee process to work with the architect to cost contain the project into something that we feel is workable, that balances the cost of the project with the square footage that we feel we need. And that's going to continue even after any sort of decisions made on budget. So you're not wrong, Doral. I'm saying that if you follow the process, you go back to the videos and the process we've had, it's led us to this point. So, and all of these numbers were vetted by the architect before I went into that meeting the other night,
Which meeting was that?
the joint meeting.
Okay, I've been talking about Columbia Street and demoing 235,000 square feet of building when we need affordable housing. This isn't something I just started talking about in the last month. I've been talking about this for 3 years. And you're going to spend $4 million to demo the building when we need affordable housing. So if the athletic facility is going to end up over in Curtis Corner, why wouldn't we put the school over there too? And the comment from Mr. Marion, Mike Marion, about the taxpayers voting it down. They didn't vote down the place, they voted down the project. If we're going to have our athletic field there, if it's likely to have our athletic field there, why wouldn't we have our building there too?
May I comment on that, Doral? Do you mind?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Because we have a lot of the wetland flagging, we have the whole ledge discussion. There's like this whole discussion, so the new proposed possible athletic field would be in the same location as the current school. But if we go any further back into that property, that's when we get into the weeds, literally, of the swamp, the wetlands, and again, it goes back into all the misinformation that we had in the first project. That land had been deemed unbuildable, and then suddenly it was buildable. And so that was where most of the contention came from. And so to go back down that rabbit hole, I think would be a very ill-advised plan for us. So we know what area is usable, and that's where, to me, where the athletic complex was kind of being proposed at. But if we start to expand on that land, we're getting into rec fields, we're getting into ledge, we're getting into swampland, we're getting into wetlands, which is why the school committee and the town council voted the way they did, I believe.
Yeah, but there could be a dialogue between the rec commission and the school department as to if you put the high school on the field back there, you can come in off of South Road with your parking and all the rest of it. And the issue about ledge is just not an issue, because there's ledge all over this town. They brought that up because they didn't want the thing there, is basically what it is. There's ledge everywhere in this town.
So Doral, your point's taken. I would just point out that we were looking at the options at both sites. We got the wetlands information, but ultimately the council and the school committee both instructed us to only focus on Columbia Street. So it's not within our purview to take that on. That is something that would have to get directed to the town council and school committee, primarily the school committee. And I think Mike was clear on that. So this body can't unilaterally start pushing another site. We work at the pleasure of the school committee and council.
Mr. Chairman, the school committee's already voted. The high school building project is at Columbia Street, and we hope that we'll be addressing some of the deficiencies going forward at the other buildings.
Okay, the last thing I got to say is, I went to the school committee budget meeting, the last 2 meetings this week.
Doral, your time was
Yeah, I'm just saying that
expired.
I didn't hear anything from those 2 nights that makes me think that you're going to get any savings at all from the school committee for this project.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have a burning desire? Because we're running out of time, so. Okay. All right. I appreciate everyone's attendance. This was a short meeting tonight. I appreciate getting to the agenda. Our next meeting is, I believe, March 2nd. Phil will be in attendance at that meeting. I do hopefully expect a robust discussion at that one, so that will be a full meeting. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make
Make
the
a
motion.
Who is that? Who's my motion? Thank you,
Second.
Chip. Thank you, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good night, everyone.